Hello everyone and a warm welcome to Solo Board Gaming presents Fields of Fire, and we are going to do a playthrough of this brilliant game designed by Ben Hull from the mighty GMT Games. I'll say warm welcome because outside it's dark, it's thundery, it's stormy, it's pouring down with rain, it's affecting my lighting. Because I have artificial lighting, but also I do depend on day lighting from the window, I'm afraid. And so I just hope that this is going to be okay, because it's as if dawn hasn't dawned at all today outside. It's a very gloomy, blustery day. Anyway, who is the most excited wargamer in the world of all time today? It's me! And it's me because I really didn't expect to be this excited, but it's what this game does to me. It's Fields of Fire. I've had it about 3 years. Take a look at my last video number 1 in this Fields of Fire series. I've had it about 3 years, almost 4 years maybe. I haven't played it at all this year. I've played it dozens of times before that. But this is the first time this year in 2021, and I really wanted to do so. So why not bring one of my favourite games of all time to the table? And I have to thank everyone for your responses, subscribers and occasional visitors who have left brilliant comments, really useful comments, and some wonderful comments on the last video where I was asking, do we really need another video of how to play Fields of Fire? Well, okay, I probably knew the answer anyway, and the answer is probably no, we don't. It's just that I thought we would do a game for people who still keep looking at Fields of Fire and still haven't bought it. It must have been one of the most discussed games of all time. And I knew there'd be a good response to that last video. But most of it, in fact, all of it, I'm really glad to say was very positive indeed, in one way or another kind of thing. So we're going to do it. One last thing before I actually crack on with it. Just bear with me 1 second. Several people said, hey, why don't you do Korea? And what a brilliant idea. And I can't do that right now, but I guarantee, I'll make a promise, in the new year, I'm really excited by that suggestion to do Korea. We will do that. The reason I can't do it right now is that I'm set up basically to play Fields of Fire World War II Normandy campaign. It's the one I know particularly well, and it's the one where we're going to get the basic rules down for those people that have still yet to play the game and those that haven't quite mastered it and have placed it back on the shelf. So that's the reason for doing Mission 1, which is the smallest one and one that you can have a reasonable amount of YouTube videos about without it being too big and therefore much too long a series. And secondly, to do Korea, I think you need those basic rules and a few more, because Korea, the maps are going to start off bigger anyway, and you've got things like hidden terrain, you've got armoured vehicles, so that's for another time. We will do it in the new year, and thanks for people that suggested doing Korea. We will do it. But here we are. We're going to do World War II, Fields of Fire by Ben Hull from the mighty GMT Games, and we're going to do Mission 1, Travia. Let's go. Okay, we're not going to do too much setup detail because it's all in the book. It's relatively easy to understand, and we really want to get into the mission. But basically, this is the card where you place your assets. And look, at the top here, we've got our chain of command. We've got the CO, we've got the XO, we've got the first sergeant, and we've got 1, 2, and 3 platoon. These are the orders. This is where we will decide at the beginning of each turn how many orders are going to be given from battalion to the CO, and also from the CO to the rest of the platoon. And there's also initiative phases as well, but we're going to go into that. We don't want to jump too far ahead. That'll be easily explained as we go through. It's daylight, it's bright, so there's no visibility issues. And here we have the boxes where we can put the assets for each of those command elements. First of all, the CO. The CO has a battalion net radio, okay? But he also has a company net radio, so he can speak to his company commanders and staff. He's also carrying, I've decided, Green Star Pyrotechnics and Red Star Pyrotechnics, as has the XO. He's got the same. He's also carrying a company net radio. The CO First Sergeant is also carrying a company TAC net radio. Actually, he has the mortar section with him. I've decided to give him the mortar section, and it's the mortar section that's carrying the radio. I've just put it on the First Sergeant's asset track there. And then we've got 1st, 2nd and 3rd platoon, each of them carrying company net radios, and each of them carrying smoke. There's a lot more pyrotechnics than that we can put on that. We can put red smoke, yellow smoke, green smoke, purple smoke, and we can assign each of those signals, if you like, a different order. I've not done so at this time because you don't have to do that. You don't have to use them all. And I just want to keep it fairly simple. So we're just using green and red starburst pyrotechnics there. Now come over to this side. And here they are. These are the unit counters that will actually be on the map when we develop the map shortly. We have our CO HQ there. There he is with that helmet, and he is one step. See that single yellow spot? That's a one-step unit. We've then got the XO. Now the XO is going to take the 50 caliber team. This is a heavy weapons team with a 50 caliber machine gun for support. We then have the First Sergeant. He is going to be taking the mortar section. Brilliant thing. I mentioned in the last video how fairly sandbox this is, because that mortar section, you can instead split them up into 3 mortar teams. And for instance, if you do that, you would probably then put one with each of your platoons. That's absolutely fine, but you make the decision before you start the game. My decision has been to keep them together as a mortar section. We then have attached, we have an artillery forward observer, and he has a battalion net radio as well. So actually the CO, for instance, can contact the artillery forward observer. Next, we have, within our company, we have 3 platoons, 1, 2, and 3 platoon HQ. So these are the lieutenants or lieutenants. There is going to be some terminology difference between myself being English on this side of the pond and our US friends. I apologise for that. I will try to use US terminology where I can, because we are talking about a US unit here. But there will be differences. We are, after all, separated by a common language, as they say, which can be quite amusing sometimes. So we've got 1 platoon, 2 platoon, and 3 platoon. And here are, each platoon has 3 sections. 1 section, 2 section, 3 section. Or 3 squads. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd squad. So there we go again. 1st squad of 2nd platoon, down to 3rd squad of 2nd platoon, and here we have 3 platoon and the 3 squads there. The 3rd squad of each of the platoons I've given a rifle grenade to. They're a one-shot weapon, and you're supposed to, at the beginning of the game, assign the rifle grenade to one of the sections in each platoon. I decided to just for ease, again, to ease into the game, give it to the same section of each platoon. So it's going to be 3 sections who are each going to have a rifle grenade. Then we come further down. 1 platoon and 2 platoon are going to have a light machine gun each. This will be the 30 cal. So each are going to have a light machine gun. We're only allowed 2 for this mission, so 3 platoon do not have one. Each platoon will get an anti-tank weapon, a bazooka. There will be no armour in this mission, but a good bunker busting, trench busting weapon. So that's us set up. That's how we are distributing our weapons. Let's go now to our O group. So we take our green deck of terrain cards, because there are 3 decks of terrain cards. A deck for Normandy, there's the deck for Korea, and there's the deck for Vietnam. So we shuffle like mad things our terrain deck, and this is why our map, the terrain over which we fight, that becomes our battlefield, changes every single game. So I would say the replayability of this is infinite. Bold statement, but I think it's infinite. So we take the cards off the top and we go like, oh, by the way, the scenario instructions have told us that the size of this particular map, it's the smallest one in the scenarios. The size of this particular map is 4 columns by 3 rows. Simple as that, okay? So our first one goes down. We've got a farm. Look at that. We'll discuss these in a second. The next one, we've got hedgerow. Yeah, that makes sense. Look, the bocage country of Normandy. And then we've got, a hedgerow again. Bocage, like so. And this is now our 4 columns and woods over on this side. So we've got our 4 columns. Now we need 3 rows. So we'll put another one there like so, hedgerow again. And then we've got hedgerow again. Okay, look, there are different pictures on many of these so that you don't get bored with it. But it's right. This is Normandy in 1944. This is bocage country. Oh, good grief. Open fields. Deadly ground there. And then we've got an orchard. Okay, like it, like it, like it. And here we have orchard again. Okay, orchard on each side. Woods. Lovely. Sunlight coming through the woods there. Woods again. Okay, fair enough. And woods again. A village. Okay, that's cool. So that's us setting up our terrain, our map for this particular mission. We'll put the rest of our mission cards, the rest of our terrain cards, I should say, over there in case we need them, because theoretically the map can grow as you play the game. Yes, it can. So, we'll have a closer look. Okay, this isn't quite the angle that we'll play with, but I've just wanted to choose this angle because this is our O group. We're going to discuss the terrain in front of us. Take a quick look at the cards. Okay, so in general then, if we have a general overview first, we've got woods in front of us. We've got orchards on this side, a village, really good vantage point. This could be if we could clear that village. Further on, we've got cover all the way up this way. We've got an orchard into the woods here. On this axis here, we have woods, open fields, and then into bocage there. That's quite dangerous, I think, because a well-sighted machine gun up here could fire all the way down. So we have to be careful about that one. Over to here, again, we have woods in this tree line here, hedgerow, bocage, and on this left flank, orchard, bocage and farm. So that's the general layout of the land. Just to explain various things about some of the cards first, before we move forward too much further. One of the most common cards that you'll come across is woods. So let's take a look at this woods card here. And the same for this one here. First of all, you'll notice this green, solid and broken line around the border. And the same with this one here. So we'll talk about line of sight then, for instance. You can always see into an adjacent card. So that's the first rule, and it's an easy rule. You can always see into an adjacent card. But if it has a green border like this one, for instance, we can see from here into here, but we bump up against that green border there, we can't see beyond it. That's self-explanatory. If it has a white open border, like this one here, again, this makes sense, doesn't it? We can see from these woods, there's nothing stopping us here. We can see straight to the white border into the hedgerow there. Let's try and find another example. It's the same diagonally. So for instance, we can see from these woods through into this card here, but bump. Look, see how it bumps up against that green corner there. We can't see out of that any further. Same here. We can see into the next adjacent card diagonally, but no further. We can see here, from here, through this border, and it's adjacent card anyway, so of course we can, but we can't see any further into it there. Look at it from the reverse. Look what happens. If we had enemy here, they could see through into this adjacent card, but there's a white border. So it could also see through into this card here. So again, these cards aren't helping us at all as far as visibility by the enemy is concerned. You can get these situations here, look, where you have a green border either side. So you can't see directly maybe into this card, except from an adjacent card, but you can across here. You can see from here right the way through to here, because of these white borders. So you see how the borders work. Just something on visibility here, first of all, by the way, I just realised. Village here, and look, there's this icon here where it says multi-story, because once you get into the village and you seek cover, and we'll come on to that obviously, you can also get yourself up into a multi-story. So you'll be able to see across cards, across the board. For instance, like so. Could be really useful. So that was multi-story. How much defensive value does each card give us? It's this big number in the top left, +3 to our defense, +2. Obviously, we're in the woods. +1 for the orchard. Nothing for open fields. So it all makes sense. Sometimes you see a different number. For instance, in bocage, commonly, where +2 is defence across the green border, because that's the way the bocage is going, that's the way the hedgerow is going, but only +1 through the white sections. See if I can find one the other way round. That one's going that way as well. +2 through the green border, +1 through the other borders. And also, something to remember, it's also +1 for plunging fire, not +2. So that's something to remember there. Those additions to our defence. But on that same topic, okay, if we come down to here again, the woods, we see a -1. So again, a -1 to plunging fire from mortars and artillery, because they're bursting in the trees, splinters everywhere. So minus numbers, lower numbers, are detrimental to us. We want the plus numbers. So, okay, we might get +2 defence in the woods, but for plunging fire from mortars and artillery, it's a -1 as well. And possibly You see, woods can give us good cover, can't it? Okay, so woods can give us good cover, but to find bits of cover within the woods, you know, a specific bit of cover, a decent clump of trees, a clump of undergrowth, a fold in the ground, things like that. Each of these cards will allow us, see that there, that number there, 3. So there are 3 potential items of cover within that card. 3 potential items of cover within that card. So you could have various forces on the card under up to 3 individual pieces of cover. And to try and find those cover, the chances of finding cover in woods is pretty good. And that's shown by, to find cover, each time we try to find cover, we can draw 4 cards. It'll make sense now when I tell you that in this village, there's an icon there, look. Again, we can find potentially three different pieces of cover for our troops, and we draw 4 cards because the probability of that cover is high. Let's compare it to an orchard. Potentially we can find 2 pieces of cover, so slightly less, and less chance of doing so. We only draw 3 cards. And then we'll go to the extreme, the open fields. We can only find 1 piece of cover in that open field. There's only 1 potential piece of cover in the open field. There's 1 fold in the ground somewhere that we've got our eyes on. It's one of those things you can imagine your platoon all diving for that 1 little fold in the ground. That would be quite a comedy there. But and also the chances of finding it are less because we only draw 2 cards when we're trying to find cover. So that explains So in its simplest terms, that's how the cards work, the line of sight, the defensive values and things like that. Oh, I think there was only one thing I missed out on there, wasn't there? Yeah, like on the woods. No, it says there's an icon for an armoured vehicle there. It says no, armoured vehicles cannot move through that particular ground. So that's more or less it. And there's no armour in this particular mission anyway. As I say, we need to get the basics, the core mechanics, just to show how flipping good this game is. And we give ourselves a start line, a forming up point. Here, just use the backs of some of the cards from your deck. That's absolutely fine. And I've placed my troops like so. I've placed 1 platoon here, 2 platoon over here, and 3 platoon there. Mix it up a bit. I found myself doing that, but normally, normally just for my own sort of organisational peace of mind, I would tend to go left to right, 1 platoon, 2 platoon, 3 platoon. But I've put 1 platoon over here because they have an LMG. So the multi-story there could be useful if that's what we want to do. But also, I've given myself other options. I've put the artillery forward observer here. Multi-story could be good. And I've also put the XO here because he has the heavy machine gun, the 50 cal. So either of these elements could make use of that multi-story, just depending on how the mission goes. Over on the other flank, I put 2 platoon, and again, because they have the 30 cal LMG, I've got the sergeant with them, the company first sergeant with the mortar section. And I've also got the CO's HQ there as well. And in the middle, as a reserve, more or less really, because I think that's how we're going to use them, I've got 3 platoon ready to exploit any potential breakthrough from either of the flanks. Now, in this staging area, there is free movement in the staging area and free communication. There is no fire from the staging area into the battle area or from the battle area into the staging area. And this is our O group, as I said. So we've discussed the ground. So now I'm going to discuss our primary objective, and I'm going to place a marker I think it makes sense to me that I'm going to, and we can decide ourselves where we want to put the primary objective, anywhere on the top row. I'm going to make the primary objective the farm in the top left corner, and the secondary objective the bocage area next to it. Our forming up point, or our attack position, has to be in a card in the second row adjacent to either the objective or the secondary objective. So I am going to put that here. That's our attack point. Our left boundary is there like so. We cannot go beyond our left boundary because A company is on that side and we don't want to walk into their fire. We cannot go beyond our right of axis because Charlie company is over here on our right. We don't want to wander into their fire. So that's our arc like so. Our line of departure is down here. I won't bother putting that on the map right now. But our limit of advance or limit of exploitation is at the far top of the map. I don't know, 500 meters away. Our current activity level is no contact. So we'll place that there. Like so. I bet I forget, because I'm always doing it, and I think a lot of us do, forget to change from, for instance, no contact to engaged or heavily engaged. What's that one on now? I can't remember. Contact. Okay, so we've got contact, no contact, contact, engaged, or heavily engaged. Okay, so we are at the moment no contact. We can also add phase lines, phase 1, phase 2, for instance, but this is a small map. We've not got far to go. If I add phase lines, it will only confuse and clutter the map. I don't do it. These maps can get big. They can go 5 rows, they can go 5 columns, and even bigger than that. And then you might want to use phase lines for your orders. But right now, we don't need to use those, so I'm not adding them to the map. I've written down my order of battle. As I said before, I'm not using much pyro. So actions on red smoke will be ceasefire. Actions on green smoke will be shift fire. So that's all we're using, but I could have assigned actions to purple smoke, yellow smoke, and so on. Ats and dets, that's attachments and detachments. Attachments is the 15th Field Artillery with 105s, and they have HE or white phosphorus. The artillery forward observer draws 2 cards, or if it's the CO, because he can also order the artillery, he will be drawing 1 card. And we have 4 fire missions of HE and 1 of white phosphorus. And we've just noted there that more or less all of our officers are green, whereas the men are line. So the main troops in our infantry squads are line. And just our first sergeant is a vet. He's a veteran. Finally, communications. The officers will be carrying, as I mentioned over on the asset tracker over there, they'll all be carrying company net radios. Now, radios can only communicate from one card to an adjacent card. That's it. That's as far as the radios are going to go. So anybody further away from your, for instance, platoon commander than that is out of communication. And in fact, so poor are these radios that if the radio is in the woods but not under cover, it cannot communicate with a unit on the same card that's undercover. Or if the, for instance, a 3 platoon lieutenant is undercover, He cannot now communicate to the adjacent card because he's undercover. Rubbish radios. That's a challenge. So that's what it's all about. We need to move our company forward, commanded by our CO, who is aided by his XO and the company first sergeant. We need to push our platoon commanders forward in order to get into a position to take our primary and secondary objective within 10 turns. That's it. We've got 10 turns to do it. It's a tough game, but we're going to enjoy it. I think I've done enough to start turn 1. No, I haven't. Stop. One more thing. We have an action deck. Yes, I nearly forgot the action deck. There we are. An immensely shuffled deck of action cards that we're drawing from. Every single time where you would normally roll a dice, there's no dice in this game at all. So instead we would draw from the top of the action deck. Let's have a look. There are 5 areas on each card. First of all, you have the number of commands or the number of initiative commands. I'm going quickly here, but don't forget, we're going to discuss each one, but as we're playing the game. The next, you'll have your action pane here. The action pane will contain icons or words which will help decide if the action you're taking out has actually occurred or not. Okay, so this is the action pane. Next, we have what we use instead of a CRT, the result of any fire taken or fire that we're giving. So from hit to pin to miss. I enjoy the realism of this game in that most of the time, most of your soldiers, most of the troops are going to spend their time pinned. And it's the same when they're giving fire. Most of the time, they're going to be pinning the enemy down so that we can hopefully try to find alternative methods of taking out that enemy. So we're going to spend most of our time pinned. That's the nature of the firefight. The next pane is this one here where it says hit effect, and that's going to vary whether we're veteran, line or green. And finally, we have our dice. This bottom row here is used instead of dice. So that is our action deck, like so. Should we have a look at another one? Oh, there we go, contact. There we have a target. What else we got here? Oh, boom, boom, boom. Like so. And finally, for this brief setup, we've put the potential contact markers on each card. Again, quite simple, which is why we've only done an overview, if you like, sort of briefly, broadly covering the setup in this video, because the setup is an easy part of the game, and it's all set out both in the rules and, of course, in the actual scenario books themselves. And in this particular scenario, we've been told to place a potential contact marker, and here they are. That's a potential contact marker, potential contact C, and we place a potential contact marker on each and every card. Now, for this scenario, the potential contact along this first row is C. The middle row is A's. So that's all A. And the final row is B. And basically the categories, the type of contact potentially occurring from any of these cards gets progressively more likely or progressively more serious, dependent upon what the category is, A, B, or C. Now, on some of them, of course, there won't be any contact at all, thank goodness. But we have to run those risks on every single card we enter. We have to clear these cards as we go forward towards our objectives in the top left there, using our company here, which we've decided is Bravo Company of the 9th Infantry Regiment. And I don't think there's any other game whose enemy AI uses quite such a potent and realistic method of spawning the enemy, and then the enemy acting in such a realistic and persistent manner. All's quiet now, but as soon as we start to move forward, you'll see the pressure mount, and it certainly does. Another thing I like, each of these photographs, look, the woods, the orchards, particularly the bocage, the open fields and the farms or the villages. These are photographs taken across the actual ground where these units fought during World War II, and that's exactly what we're just about to do. So that's the broad setup then, and we're ready to go. We're ready for our first turn, so please join me in the next video to see how we fight step by step through these cards using all of the potential rules that we can. So by the time we get to the end, you should be pretty au fait with what's going on with Fields of Fire Volume 1. Thanks, see you soon.